Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the Haydn Symphony Crusade. And we're up to Symphony number 98, the last in the first group of 6 that he wrote for his London visits in 1791-92. You know, in those days when you went to visit, you really went to visit. I mean, he was there for like a year. 2 years, a year and a half, I don't know, a long time. You took all your stuff with you, and you threw it on a boat. I mean, first you had carriages, and then you threw it on a boat, and then you settled into, some rooms with servants, and you were going to be there for a while. And of course, he knew that because he was giving a concert series for which he wrote these 6 symphonies. Number 98 is special for a number of reasons, but the most important of them probably is that it's often regarded as his tribute to Mozart, who had died in December of 1791, and his death devastated Haydn, absolutely devastated him. I mean, he considered Mozart to be the greatest composer alive after himself. I mean, he knew he was good, but he said Mozart was the greatest genius he'd ever encountered. And in his diary, Haydn kept a diary, and he wrote down everything. It's a fascinating document, his London diaries, where the things he saw and the people he met and all the stuff that was going on. And on the day he received the news of Mozart's death, he simply wrote, "Mozart stirbt." Mozart died. That's it. Nothing else for that day. And the reason that people feel that this symphony is particularly attuned to that event is because it sounds Mozartian in places, especially in the second movement, in the use of chromaticism and in its operatic wit. There are a lot of things about it that recall Mozart, but of course, in Haydn's own way. He's never imitating, ever. I mean, never, ever. Everyone imitated Haydn, not the other way around. So there is a little bit of a controversial thing there. We'll talk about it when we get to the moment in question, or the moments in question. But it is an extraordinary symphony. And if you paid attention to number 97, where we talked about it being a Darwinian symphony, because it's all about evolution, the evolution of a basic idea that we hear at the beginning throughout all 4 movements. Well, this one is quite different. This symphony is also about evolution in its way, but it's evolution within each movement. There are motives that the movements share, but no longer melodic or motivic ideas. They are very, very simple and basic. And each movement does its own thing. And the introduction to this particular symphony tells us exactly how that particular evolution is going to happen. So I think we ought to just start with the introduction. I've got to find my thingy that I show here. Wait a minute. Where did it go? Oh, goodness gracious. Hang on a minute. There it is. This thing, you don't have to stare at my face while the music plays. I wouldn't try and inflict that on you if I can avoid it. Sometimes I forget, but there you go. So let's just listen to the introduction. Listen carefully to the introduction. Now, you may also recall that number 97, the introduction didn't end. It was interrupted by the beginning of the allegro, the quick part. Here, it comes to a firm close. But what was this introduction? Essentially, it's the same thing 3 times, but each time differently. Loud, soft, different melodic shape, same opening idea, da, 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 or in the minor key, da, 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 like that. But it goes a different way each time. And so what Haydn is telling us, quite simply and succinctly, is that these ideas, the ideas you're going to hear in every one of these movements, are going to be constantly changing. They're perpetually evolving within each movement, just like we hear in this introduction. And to jam the point home, the opening theme of the Allegro is the first statement of the opening of the introduction, except in B-flat major instead of in B-flat minor, except it's not in a minor key. But it's the same tune. And from there on, the whole exposition of the first movement is practically monothematic. You keep hearing bum, 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 and it just goes different places every time you hear it. And that's one thing you want to keep in mind. Then we need to talk about what the main motives are, the motivic ideas. They're incredibly simple. They're a squiggle and a bounce. In fact, the squiggle is the bounce. It depends on how you do it. It's dum, bum, bum, da, 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 dum. That's the squiggle. Ba-dum, ba-dum, bum. And you can do it. Ba-da, 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 ba-dum. You can do it as long as you want. It doesn't matter. And if you make the interval a little bigger, just a little bit bigger, then the squiggle becomes a bounce. And you make it staccato instead of ya-da-da-da-da, where it's a nice sort of legato, that's tied together sound. But if you go bum, boom, 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 like that, you get a bounce. So stay on the alert for squiggles and bounces. And then after the squiggle and bounce bit, and it keeps doing different variations on the opening idea, there is actually a second subject. And it seems to be quite a throwaway second subject. It's only 4 notes with a sort of answer. Ya da 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 bum bum bum. It does that. I mean, it's really very, very simple. And you may wonder what those 4 notes are doing there. Well, you're going to find out soon enough. We'll talk about it when we get to the second movement, actually. But let's stop wasting time and listen to the entire exposition. It's a wonderful thing. And listen also, as usual with Haydn, there's this very rich vein of counterpoint that runs through this movement. You don't just hear the same tune. There are counter melodies and all kinds of other wonderful little doodads that surround it and that keep the music lively and fresh and full of interest. There's always something to listen to deeper down in the texture. And when you're listening to this exposition, think about that too, because I think you'll have a wonderful time just listening to how it never seems at all repetitious, not a bit. It seems rich, just full of ideas, even though it's all based on a single one. It's kind of paradoxically thrilling. So here, with the Nicholas Esterhazy Sinfonia under Belladrahos, is the exposition of Symphony number 98, first movement. Okay. Now, the other thing you have to hear in this movement, you simply must hear in this movement, is the development section, which is just unbelievably fabulous. First of all, it begins with a lot of squiggly, bouncy things. And you can listen to those, and whether you call them squiggles or bounces depends on your own definition of what a squiggle is and what a bounce is and the difference between them. And it does that a lot. It's a big development section. It's entirely based on, well, there's only really one main idea in the entire movement. So that's what it's based on. But it's incredible how much variety Haydn gets out of it. It's very tempestuous, as it gets moving. It's really, really cool, but it doesn't use, you'll notice, trumpets and timpani. This is a symphony that has, the usual assortment of winds and brass and whatnot, but the development must go into some very unusual keys, because there is no point at which the trumpets and timpani participate. And when they finally come back in, we're in the recapitulation, which I actually include, so you know when the restatement of the initial ideas begins. So here is the development section. Oh, it's so developmental. But then again, the thing's been developing for the first bar. That's always what's so wonderful about Haydn, actually. You don't really have to worry about these sectional things, because the music is just this perpetually evolving and refreshing organism. But this is a particularly good organism. Here is the development section. And that's really all you need to know about the first movement. It's very straightforward. And the main idea is incredibly catchy. So you follow it without any difficulty whatsoever. The end of the movement, actually, is very interesting. It does more bouncy things in the coda. And then it ends with the famous 3 Haydn chords. Chonk, 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 that thing. But that's the first movement. And we're in business once we get there. It's just totally self-explanatory. Haydn's really nice to us that way. The second movement. Okay. This is the Mozart-y movement. Some people have connected the opening theme, which sounds an awful lot like God Save the King, by the way. Clearly, to the Agnus Dei from Mozart's Coronation Mass. And also to other bits of, Mozart's Jupiter Symphony and things. Everyone's digging around looking for little Mozart bits. And that's a big mistake, because we don't know the extent to which Haydn heard Mozart's larger pieces, his sacred music, for example, the Coronation Mass. I don't know if I'd never heard it. Do you? I don't think there's any evidence of it. Maybe there is. I never saw any. Haydn knew Mozart's operas because they were premiered in Vienna, and he knew the quartets dedicated to him because he played them with Mozart, and he knew, a bunch of other things, the quintets, and, he always hung out with Mozart when he could. So we don't know what he saw. But the idea that he copied this as a conscious tribute, I'm on the fence with that one. I don't accept it. I think that what is Mozartian about this movement is its beautiful, exquisite lyricism, that long breath vocal lyricism. The very opening, which is, little bits of God Save the King separated by pauses. Ya-da-da-da-dum, ya-ya-da-da-dum. And then the sigh. Ya-da-da-da. That's Mozart. Ya-da-da-da. It's just this vocal upwelling of feeling. That's the kind of thing that we know and love so much about Mozart. And I don't think Haydn has to quote anything in order to make the point. I think it's an expressive gesture, which is so characteristic of Mozart's language. It's absolutely wonderful. But it's even more wonderful about this movement is that it is also in sonata form. In fact, the first, second, and fourth movements are all in sonata form. Strict sonata form, exposition, development, recapitulation, serious sonata form, which is also Mozartian, because Mozart and his later symphonies and orchestral works tend to be extremely attached to the various versions of sonata form and use them constantly. Haydn, as you know, as you've already heard, liked to do sometimes, variation movements and rondos. I mean, Mozart did those things too, but not in the same way Haydn did. Haydn would really mix up the forms of the movements within a single work. Mozart would take sonata form and stick with it as often as not, and that's what Haydn does here. So that's also a Mozartian practice. And the wonderful thing about this movement is that it is entirely through composed. Remember the introduction. The introduction is repetitions that are never the same. Well, that's exactly what happens here. It's really fascinating. And the form is incredibly simple, but also unexpected. You have the God Save the King tune, and then you have an absolutely gorgeous vocal melody with one of those one of those rocking accompaniments. It's beautifully Mozartian. And then there's a stormy transition to the development section, which plays the first and second themes in reverse order. You have the first theme again in a varied form. Second theme, pardon me. The second theme comes right back in varied form. Then there's a very turbulent development based on just those four notes. Da, 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 like that. A big contrapuntal development. And those four notes may just remind you of the four notes which comprise the second subject of the first movement. Da, 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 that thing. I hear it. Others may not, but I really do hear it. And I think that Haydn was kind of setting that up by introducing that four-note idea, so that we have a similar, not identical, four-note idea. And it's really a very Sturm und Drangisch development. I mean, it really works itself out. And then we come to the recapitulation, where we hear the opening theme, but this time adorned with a contrapuntal melody and the solo cello, which I include in this example. Actually, there are two examples. I haven't even played them. I'm so into talking about how this movement is shaped and what it does, because it's just so amazing, that I didn't even play the examples yet. Let's listen to the exposition, okay? Let's just do the exposition, and then we'll take it from there. It's first theme, which is that beautiful gloss on God Save the King. And notice how when it comes back, it's not the same. It's never the same. Nothing in this movement is ever the same when it gets repeated. And then the beautiful melody, which is the second subject, and the stormy transition to the development. Here it all is. And now we'll go right to the development, where you have the second theme, which is varied on repetition, but the lyricism is preserved. The basic shape of the melody is preserved. And then the really turbulent, thrilling development of just that 4-note opening idea from the movement. Here that is. And last but not least, so it all comes back with the solo cello, as you just heard, and there's a coda. And the coda is absolutely divine. It begins with solo winds and gradually, ends in a feeling of total inner peace and transfigured wholeness and all of that stuff. Quite lovely, but again, never exactly the same as what we heard at the beginning of the movement. And that's what makes this such a special slow movement in Haydn's output. Here it is. Oh boy, that's a major statement, and a wonderful tribute to his best friend, assuming that's what it really was. I mean, I think we can certainly see it that way for purely musical reasons, not because he's quoting or that doesn't help us. Now, the slow movement, you may have noticed, had no bounces and no squiggles. It partook of the developmental aspect of the symphony, and possibly the first movement, second subject, but the minuet. Oh, the minuet. The minuet is all bounces and squiggles. That's all it is. Bounces and squiggles and bounces. Bwam, bump, bump, wham, bump, bump. You can look at the bounces either starting on the bottom and going up or starting on the top and going down. It doesn't make any difference. And the trio section, which we'll get to in a minute, is the squiggle part. But let's listen to the entire minuet without repeats, but the entire thing so you can hear the way it just bounces and hops around. That's what it's doing. It's bouncing. It's Haydn's bounciest minuet, actually. And here we go. And then the middle section, the trio. Oh my goodness. It is all squiggles. Wada, 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 ooda, ooda, ooda. And a couple places, it actually starts to turn into a bounce. It's wada, wada, womp, 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 womp. You call them as you hear them. It's entirely up to you just how bouncy or squiggly it gets. But there's no question that that's what it is. So here we go. So as you can see, Haydn is working in every movement with the basic ideas that sort of dominate the flow of the argument of this particular symphony. But it's not like 97. It's not like all the themes are related to each other. They're different. Each movement has its own stuff. And the finale, the finale. This is also a finale symphony. This is Haydn's longest finale. I think it's his biggest finale. It's in full sonata form with a repeated exposition. And it's at a huge coda. And it's hilarious. It's incredibly funny. First of all, one of the most important things in this movement is the bounce. And he makes really, really clear, we know that it has a bounce. Here is its bounce. So, boom, yeah, boom, yeah, boom, yeah, boom, yeah. It's a bounce. I don't think there's any question about that. It also has squiggles. So you can, like all of his finales, they are summaries, in a sense, of everything that's happened before. And the other thing that we need to keep in mind, along with the bounce and the squiggles, is the idea of this ongoing perpetual development. And oh my, is this developmental. It's unbelievably developmental and monothematic also. The opening tune, da 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 da, ba 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 da ba ba da ba ba da ba 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 da 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 ba 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 da da da. He can play that 7 billion different ways without ever 723 billion, without ever repeating it exactly the same way. But you always know what you're hearing. You know because of the rhythm, and because of the shape of the tune. But it's all over the place. I mean, he does it. Well, you have to hear it. You'll hear it in the exposition. And then the second subject, da 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 dum, ba 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 da da dum, ba 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 da da da. Well, it's da 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 da. It's they're all related. Okay, let's just leave it at that. But the second subject is going to be really funny. And notice how the accompaniment to the second subject starts to get somewhat bouncy. It's really, really fun. So here is the exposition of the finale, the whole thing. And it's just very rich and full of, again, it's like the first movement. It's full of seemingly disparate ideas and variety, but they're all related to each other. I mean, it's all based on that same initial theme, which is totally awesomely cool. So here it is. And then we have the development section. Oh, this development section is fun. The development section is a series of violin solos for Haydn's concertmaster Solomon. And it's accompanied by the bounce. It's just boom, chick, boom, chick, like that. With the solo violin, it's so charming. He's whispering to us confidentially. It's also Mozartian. We think it's vocal music. It speaks to us. I mean, so directly and with such wit and such. Just listen to it. Here's the whole development section leading to the solo violin, which also brings in the recapitulation. mean, isn't that just like, it's funny. We're overhearing a very amusing conversation. I mean, that's what it sounds like to me. Anyway, the solo violin introduces the recap, which proceeds apace, and we come to the coda. Now, the coda begins in a slower tempo. With some sly chromatic additions that also may remind you of Mozart, if you're a Mozartian. And it becomes quite grandiose. And at the height of the grandiosity comes, well, the most controversial part of the whole symphony, a solo, a cembalo solo, which is usually played on a harpsichord, although Haydn would have played it on a forte piano because he sat at the forte piano at the premiere of these symphonies. And there has been such a pile of scholarly horseshit talking about this solo, whether it meant that you should play a keyboard continuo throughout the whole symphony or just, it's all so stupid. I mean, really, we just have to look at the practicality of it. The reason that Haydn conducted these things from the keyboard, because real conductors, didn't exist except for like huge choral works. And, at that point, the conductor might sit down and get up. Who knows what happened. But the bottom line is, the reason he was sitting at the keyboard is because Haydn's concerts were multimedia extravaganzas. You would have symphonies, you would have arias, you would have concertos, you would have people calling out tunes for the composer to improvise variations on the keyboard. The keyboard was used in these concerts. It was used for secco recitative before singers, had their aria. It was used for all any music that may need it. I mean, it was used. So it was there. And the whole joke at the end of this symphony with Haydn and his keyboard is that he does nothing until that point, when he finally gets to tinkle the ivories, and tinkle they do. I mean, the other joke about this is that the solo, it's for right hand only, nothing tricky, no left hand, no, it's just, it's in a little arpeggiated accompaniment to the main theme, which is not only hilarious because it's just tinkly and delightful, but it is a whole nother variant, of course, a development of the main theme, a different way of looking at it. And it gave Haydn something, boop, 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 boop. You could do it very, very carefully. Contemporary reports say he played it with great neatness and exactitude, but he wasn't a real concert pianist. Well, listen, I can play this solo. I can play it as well as Haydn played it. Trust me, it's that easy. And the idea that there's this whole, sort of controversy about when you use the keyboard, when you don't use the keyboard, is nothing in the symphony requires a keyboard. And the joke is at its ripest and funniest when Haydn or whoever's playing it just does that and absolutely nothing else, and is basically sitting there like this for the rest of the symphony. I mean, today that's what would happen because you have conductors. And what you really ought to do in modern performances is that there ought to be a piano or a keyboard there, and the conductor should just conduct the symphony as normally, and then at the very end should walk over to that keyboard and just go, you probably with one finger. That would be best. And you're in business. And the audience chuckles and everybody laughs, and we move on to the hilarious ending right here. You see, the problem is that people in the classical music world do not know how to deal with humor. They just don't. But Haydn did, and it's possible, I think, to recapture all of the fresh, innocent humor that this movement is absolutely oozing, from the development section with the violin solos, to the boink thwoink bounces, and you'll notice the squiggles at the very end. I mean, it's and the constant evolution and metamorphosis of the basic ideas in each movement. It's just totally awesome. And the end of Haydn's first visit to London. So when we come back, clarinets enter the symphony orchestra for well, it's not the first time because Mozart had them, and some composers even before then had them, but they become standard equipment thanks to Haydn and his last 6 London symphonies. But we'll get to those quite shortly. And keep on listening, friends. Thank you so much for joining me. Take care.